A few years ago, I was invited to deliver a presentation to the International Politics Society at Aberystwyth University. The academics in the politics department weren't too happy that the students had invited me, and they refused to attend and even refused to publicise the event on the grounds that my talk would be antagonistic to woke culture and would therefore violate their departmental ethos of promoting diversity. Now, I'm not opposed to diversity. My talk wasn't even about diversity, so it's difficult to see why they had a problem. It would seem they were simply unhappy that someone who didn't share their precious ideological worldview might be speaking on their turf. It would seem that diversity of opinion was not their priority. Still, the students were fantastic. They were open-minded, they were keen to be challenged, and to be honest, we were probably better off without some po-faced academics sitting there scowling and tutting like a bunch of Victorian matrons. After this event, I reflected on why is it that so many people in positions of authority at universities, schools, libraries and other institutions are so afraid of debate and discussion. I've never been no-platformed, but a lot of feminists have, and I can't help noticing that it tends to happen more to women than to men. And today there was another example. Nottingham City Council has issued a statement saying that it has cancelled a talk at Aspley Library by the feminist author and journalist Julie Bindel. According to the statement, this is due to the speaker's views on transgender rights being at odds with aspects of the council's equality, diversity and inclusion strategy. What can this mean? Julie Bindel has been campaigning for women's rights since she was 17 years old. She is not transphobic, has never opposed the notion of equality, diversity or inclusion. As the Labour MP Rosie Duffield tweeted today, a library banning a woman writer with a history of writing about women's rights. How very progressive. Now, I've read the council's strategy, which is available online, and there's no indication that the promotion of women's rights would be a violation. And that's just as well, because after the case of Maya Fuss-Starter, the tax expert who was wrongfully dismissed by her employers for expressing her view that biological sex is immutable and important, the High Court ruled in June 2021 that what have become known as gender-critical views are in fact protected by law. By cancelling Julie Bindel's event at Aspley Library because of her protected beliefs, it does seem likely that Nottingham City Council are engaging in unlawful discrimination. They've certainly opened themselves up to the possibility of legal action. But let's leave aside the legality of the council cancelling an event because they happen to disagree with the views of the speaker. Where does this leave employees of the council? What if the employees of the council happen to agree with Julie Bindel? Are they to be fired? Or maybe the message is simply that they should just keep their mouths shut. The journalist Janice Turner asked the key question. She said, does Nottingham City Council vet the views of all speakers at their civic venues, or just feminists? They've cancelled a lesbian speaker during Pride because they're signed up to Stonewall. We did invite someone from Nottingham Council onto the show, but they haven't as yet got back to us. But it will be interesting to see how this case develops. If they are taken to task for unlawful discrimination, maybe that will send a message to other institutions, reminding them of the importance of plurality of opinion, and that however much they try to silence those who argue for the importance of women's sex-based rights, they're not going to succeed. In the end, Julie Bindel held her event in the street. Because people aren't so easily cowed, particularly when it comes to expressing their views on the issues that matter most to them. Julie Bindel, by the way, has never claimed that she is entitled to a platform. What she objects to, and rightly so, is how often she is invited to speak at an event, and then protesters put pressure onto the event organisers until it is pulled. I'm all for the right to peacefully protest, but why don't activists who object to a speaker's views simply turn up and engage in the discussion? Why do they feel the need to harass and intimidate people who don't comply? Witnesses at Aspley Library heard some of the protesters who turned up say that they were there to stop the appearance of Julie Burchill. Two of them apparently told Julie Bindel that she was Julie Burchill. But Julie Bindel is not Julie Burchill. She's a completely different Julie. They're both journalists, they have the same initials, but the similarity ends there. So these protesters didn't even know who it was they were protesting about. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's about power. There's nothing new about authoritarians trying to decide who gets to speak and who doesn't. Well, someone ought to remind Nottingham City Council that we still have a thing called freedom of speech in this country, And if they're going to start demanding that everyone thinks the same as they do, some of us are going to resist.